It is the Hutchinson's system of angiosperm classification. John Hutchinson, a British botanist, England, and he has worked at the Royal Botanical Garden, Kew. He proposed a phylogenetical type of the classification system based on the Bass's classification system. He was mainly concerned with the only angiospermic classification system and not other groups of the plants. His classification system was first appeared in a 2-volume work in the book The Families of Flowering Plants, and which was underwent several revisions due course of time. And the final treatment was appeared in the 1973. He has published Evolution and Phylogeny of the Flowering Plants, his other work, which includes the genera of the flowering. According to the Hutchinson classification systems, angiosperms were considered monophyletic in origin, and which is originated from the hypothetical proangiosperm. All the angiosperms were regarded to have evolved from 2 separate evolutionary lines, and he considered that these lines are nothing but the Herbaceae and Lignaceae, where Herbaceae having predominantly herbaceous families, and the Lignaceae, which represents the woody families. This Lignaceae started from the magnoliales and the herbaceous families, which are derived from the Rannales and its families. The Lignaceae were further grouped into 55 orders, beginning with magnoliales, the woody family of angiosperm, and ending with the verbenales, while Herbaceae were further grouped into 28 orders and beginning with the Rannales and ending with the Lamiales. So this was the basic treatment given by the Hutchinson to the angiosperm classification. The monocots were derived into 3 distinct groups on the basis of the nature of perianth, that is caliciflory, cauliflory, and the glumiflory. In caliciflory, we find that there is the presence of calyx. Cauliflory, where we can find calyx is looking like the corolla, just like the tepals. And in glumiflory, we find that the perianth whorls are turned into a smaller scaly appearances known as the lodicules. These were further divided into 29 orders, 104 families. The first publication, which was appeared in 1926, the dicotyledons were included in the subclass Archiclamidae as the group given by Engler and Prantl, where petals are free, may be absent, and the Metaclamidae where petals are fused. The system, which was further divided into 59 orders and 213 families, while later were divided into 23 orders and 51 families. As we considered that the last treatment was appeared in the 1973, which was considered as the final treatment of this system. Lithrales was transferred from Herbaceae to Lignaceae under the order Myrtles, and little alteration was made in the Monocotyledons group, where there are about 82 orders and 343 families of the dicotyledons and 29 orders and 69 families of monocotyledons, which was appeared in 1973. Here you can find the basic structure skeleton of the classification system given by the Hutchinson. Here you can find all the flowering plants which are considered under the phanerogams, where a phylum Gymnospermi and Angiospermi has been drawn. Then Angiospermi, because Hutchinson basically concentrated on the angiosperm classification. So phylum Angiospermi is further divided into subphylum Dicotyledons and the subphylum Monocotyledons, where these subphylums were again classified into the, where we can say the Lignaceae and the Herbaceae, where the Monocotyledons is further divided into where Caliciflory, Deciflory, and the Glumiflory. So this was the basic structure given by the Hutchinson. There are the basic principles which was adapted by the Hutchinson to draw out this classification system. The first principle is that evolution is the generally been consistent. Evolution is the consistent process, and it can downwards or upward can be taken place by the evolution. So downgrading is possible, and upgrading the system of any plant that can be possible in this structure, and not necessarily evolves the all organ at a time. Organ wise evolution may be possible there. So dicots are considered here are the primitive to the monocotyledonous group. At the same time, in the any one genus or the family, the shrubs or trees are older in the comparison with the climbers. So here trees and shrubs are again considered as a primitive members in the particular taxon. So here the perennial plants are considered nothing but the primitive than the biennials and the annuals. So these are the advanced group than the perennial members. So the terrestrial habit is considered the primitive by the Hutchinson, and because of that, he considered that the terrestrial ancestors, the aquatic flowering plants are derived from the terrestrial ancestors. Where spiral arrangement is considered as the basic arrangement, where it is advanced to the cyclic type of the arrangement. So spiral arrangement is the primitive to the cyclic arrangement. So these are the basic principles which was used for developing the classification system by the Hutchinson. Simple leaves are more primitive than the compound leaves. Dioecious plants are more recent than the monoecious, and the bisexual flowers are considered as the primitive to the unisexual flowers. The estivation types are also evolved from the contorted to imbricate to the volvate. So the volvate type of the estivation is considered as a more primitive. Then polymerous flowers that many parted, polypetalous, polysepalous conditions preceded to the oligomerous or few parted, or we can say the flowers are apetalous flowers have been derived from the petalous flowers. So the petaloid condition is the primitive condition, and the apetalous condition is considered as a advanced condition. Polypetally in turn is the more primitive. Actinomorphy means where all the petals are of equal size, and hypogynous condition is where the ovary is superior. So these conditions are considered as a primitive conditions over the epigynous condition, which considered as a more advanced condition in the angiosperms. The syncarpous condition, the fused carpel condition, is considered as a more advanced than the apocarpy or polycarpellary condition, and in advance to the conditions of the few carpels. So these are the considerations by the Hutchinson. The flowers with many stamens are considered as a primitive. Flowers with many stamens are considered as a primitive, and where the few stamens are there, plants with fused anthers and the filaments are considered as the advanced members in the same taxon with the separate anthers. Aggregate fruits are considered is advanced to the single fruit. So just take the example of Anonice, which is considered as a primitive family, where we find the aggregate type of the fruit. So this aggregate type of fruit is considered as a primitive than the other members of the group, where we can find another type of the fruit where capsule, berry, or it may be the drupaceous fruit. Endospermic seeds with small embryo are older, are primitive than the non-endospermic seeds with the large embryo. So these are the basic 14 principles on the basis of what Hutchinson has been developed a classification system of the angiosperms. Here you can find the outline of the Hutchinson's classification system. This group is known as the phanerogams, and this is further divided into two groups, where phylum 1 is Gymnospermi and phylum 2 is the Angiospermi. Then Angiospermi, where we can consider the flowering plants. So these are further divided into the subphylum Dicotyledoni and subphylum Monocotyledoni. where this subphylum Dicotyledoni is further divided into two divisions, where first division is the Lignosi and the another one is the Herbaceae. Now, in Lignosi, we find that these are the mostly woody plants or the woody families have been considered. And in herbaceous group, in Herbaceae, we find there were about 96 families, and these are mostly the having herbaceous habit. So Lignosia having the tree habit and the Herbaceae having the herbaceous habit of the plants which are included. So here in Lignosia we find 246 families, and in Herbaceae we observed that the 96 families were considered in this particular division. In subphylum Monocotyledoni, we find that there were three divisions has been formed, and first division is the Caliciflory, second one is the Coroliflory, and third one is the Glumiflory. Where Caliciflory, where we find the calyx or green leaf-like structure is present as a floral whorl. In Coroliflory, there we find the petaloid perianth, where calyx is not as in the cephaloid condition, but here we can find the calyx is modified into a petaloid situation condition, and this petaloid condition later on called as a perianth. Then Glumiflory, where you can find the perianth is almost absent. Calyx and corolla, there were no such whorls, but instead of that, there is a small scaly lodicules are present. So this considered in the genus, considered in the division Glumiflory. So here in the Caliciflory, we find there were about 29 families. In Coroliflory, we can find the 34 families, and in Glumiflory, where we can find the 6 families were put by the Hutchinson. When we find this classification system is based on the phylogenetical approach, here there are some merits of this system. So actually this system was based on the Besse's postulates, and after Besse he has been later modified as a phylogenetical system, and which is widely followed by the other scientists like the Tipo, Cronquist, Ostwald and Taxonomy. So it has been confirmed now that Ranels and Magnolias are considered as the basic groups in the Dicotyledons. Bentham and Hooker and Engler Prantl मध्ये कसं झालं की there can be the widely separated groups can be grouped together, but here we find that Hutchinson has given system where we can find the groups of the orders of that particular families has been comparatively smaller, and it comprises only of the closely related taxons. The arrangement of the families within the monocot has been particularly appreciated all over the world. And in this system, we find the monocots have been discussed after the dicots. So it is a clear-cut line of evolution where we can say that monocots are evolved from the dicots. So dicot has been put at the initial level. So this is the basic concept from where we can modifications or the further modifications in the system of Hutchinson has been taken over by the Cronquist, Taxonomy and the other scientists. But still there are some demerits of the system, because once we accepted any system, we study that, and after study we find some faults in the system so that this system can be rejected by many means. Hutchinson ने काय केलेलं आहे? He has divided these Lignosi and Herbaceae of the dicot group on the basis of their woody and herbaceous habit. Okay? This is strongly objectionable, as later studies by Bailey, Synod and other scientists have overall resemblances, and critical anatomical studies have shown that herbaceous habit has been derived from the woody habit, and the reverse has also been occurred occasionally. Ranels magnoliales have a group, and another one is the nymphaeals. Because evolution can be the downwards as well as upwards, and not necessarily happens into the all organs. And because of that, these scientists, where Bailey, Synod and other scientists have found that there are overall resemblances, and the evolution can be the retrogressive or reversible in the both cases. And because of that, it is strongly objectionable approach. Therefore, two evolutionary lines can be considered as a distinct lines. आणि म्हणून हर्बेसी आणि लिग्नोसी अशा दोन डिस्टिंक्ट लाईन्स आपल्याला करता येऊ शकत नाहीत, बिकॉज वी कॅन फाइंड देर आर द रिव्हर्सिबल ट्रेट्स. आता प्रायमरी डिव्हिजन काय केलेलं आहे त्यांनी? ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ वुडी ऑर द हर्बेशियस हॅबिटॅट. ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ हॅबिटॅट ही हॅज स्टार्टेड द क्लासिफिकेशन हर्बेसी आणि लिग्नोसी. आता ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ the habit itself is a wrong floral characters which are considered as a more consistent character, but habit can be modified due to some ecological conditions. There can be the change in habit can be possible. So here you can find the primary division on the basis of woody and herbaceous habitat is a wrong approach by the Hutchinson. आता इथं काय हर्बेशियस फॅमिली जे आहेत, रॅनेल्स आणि मॅग्नोलियल्स हे दोन्ही डायकॉटचे ग्रुप आहेत. आणि याच्यामध्ये हर्बेशियस फॅमिली रॅनेल्स मध्ये ज्या इन्क्लूड केलेल्या आहेत, दे आर क्लोजली रिलेटिव्ह ऑफ द मॅग्नोलियल्स. आता इव्हन एकच मॅग्नोलियसी आपण घेतलं, त्याच्यामध्ये क्लाइंबर सुद्धा आहे, त्याच्यामध्येच वुडी हॅबिट सुद्धा आहे, जसं आपण मॅग्नोलियसी आपण शिकलो. इन मॅग्नोलियसी वी फाइंड दॅट द मायकेलिया चंपका इज अ लार्ज ट्री, and whereas the other member can be the climber. So in the same family we find the two different type of the habitats. So that two different type of the habits, and because of that we consider that this basic classification, basic grouping on the basis of habitat is somewhere wrong. Herbaceous families are more closely related to and probably derived from the woody. It may be the Commaceae or the Araliaceae. Similarly, herbaceous cruciferi is clearly derived from the predominantly woody Caparidaceae. आता आपण Caparidaceae शिकलेला आहोत आणि cruciferi शिकलेले आहोत. The Caparidaceae is the woody members where the predominantly woody members can be found, but at the same time cruciferi, it is the herbaceous member which is derived from this Caparidaceae family. Cleomaceae is again the herbaceous family, आणि म्हणून this system is not of that much utility from the point of view plant classification. Phylogenetical view आपण त्याला म्हणू शकू, but on the basis of their basic classification system it should not be used or it cannot be utilized for the purpose of the plant classification. So this is all about the classification system given by the Hutchinson.